Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I am live again and still alive. So, this is the second installment of 12 at 12, something new I'm trying here to stay connected and keep people connected, not only to themselves, but also to something greater that they can access during this incredible worldwide time of chaos and change and awakening and wonder and bewilderment. What can I say? It's like something from a movie, but it's real. And of course, with anything in life, there's always many ways to look at it or many ways to take it. Something we've talked about in other videos is the idea that we don't often see what we're looking at clearly, people and situations. Rather, we see what we're looking through, our story, our culture, our biases, our preferences, and so on. And of course, that's very much true when it comes to how we're dealing with a worldwide pandemic. In particular, though, something that I'd like to speak to today is the topic of forgiveness, and how do we relate to forgiveness from different perspectives or even from different aspects of the self. So something you'll find in a lot of my work, and certainly people from the Althea Center in Denver and people who've taken my workshops know, I like to talk a lot about the four faces of the self. And that's basically the idea that each and every single one of us have multiple layers or dimensions to who we are. And that depending on the situation we're in, a different layer or aspect will be triggered or engaged. So you could think of these as like four faces, or you could think of them as four channels of perception, or you could think of them as four perspectives that you're always carrying around, but we typically pick them unconsciously. So let me give you some examples. You want to think of these four layers as being kind of like moving from the outside in. So the outermost layer is our self. Let's just call it generically the self. Now, the words I'm using you can replace with other things, but obviously this is what I like and this is what I work with. I'm checking my watch here to make sure that we stick to 12 minutes. So your outer self is your conditioned self. That's the you that you want the world to see and that you think the world wants to see. So let's keep it simple. The second layer of yourself is your wounded self. That's the part of you that's reactive, carries your hurt, your suffering, your pain, and really all the unresolved energy in your life. The third is what I call the soul self. Now, you don't have to be religious and you don't have to relate this to any particular tradition, but soul self is about your authentic original nature, who you were born to be. So it's the part of you that understands authenticity and alignment and being truthful to yourself. So we have the conditioned self, the wounded self, then we have what some might call the true self. But finally, the fourth, and what to me is the most interesting and important aspect of self, I call the spirit or the spirit self. And your spirit self is that innermost core that is actually the same in every single being, every human, every creature, and really by inference we can sense in all things, plants, animals, minerals, empty space. This is the presence of spirit in all. Now, I'm going to be going over these four probably 1,000 times, well, certainly in the rest of my life, but maybe in our posts as well. But here's how it's relevant to experiencing this pandemic, experiencing self-quarantine and social distancing. Every single aspect of what we're going through can be seen through any one of these four aspects of self. So typically, it's the wounded self that feels the survival impulse, that feels panic, that feels fear for the future. It's understandable, and typically it's got roots in other experiences that tell you that that's what you need to be feeling or thinking or connecting with. Then you've got your conditioned self. And that's the part of you that's struggling with routines being taken away. But what about my job? What about my routine? What about the things people expect from me, right? So that's your habit and conditioning. That's being pulled away. And the reality is, you're going to want to practice being mindful through present moment awareness, deep listening, patience, self-reflection, and get beyond those two. It's natural that they come up, but you don't want to feed them and you don't want to pay a lot of attention to them. Okay? Okay. So you're not going to work. I think we've got that now. So you can feel panicky at times. And yes, there may be days where you will face some very painful things, but if it's not this moment, there's no need to go there yet. The real opportunity comes for us in the last two layers of self when we consider, what does it mean to, as some would say, get back to who I really am? How can I spend this newfound time in this strange situation to reconsider what it means to live authentically? Maybe you finally have time to learn about things you've been longing to for a long time. In my last newsletter, I sent out links to two programs that are free from the University of Arizona Integrative Medicine Program. One for contemplative caregivers or contemplative caregiving, and the other one about holistic nutrition. So those are examples of things that maybe you don't normally have time for, but you could dive into now. You could make time every day to embrace some things that feed who you uniquely are. And that could include art, time in nature, a creative project, or working on something that you've never had time for. The last thing, and we just have a little bit of time left here. The last thing is the spirit self. And for me, this actually has to be the foundational self in facing anything in life. It's how we face our greatest successes. It's how we face the ordinary. It's absolutely how we face crisis, stress, and chaos. The spiritual self, or the spirit self, is that deep, quiet part of you that has no preference, that is somehow more than you. When you sit in stillness, when you're in deep meditation, when you have an aha moment and you're out in nature, in those rare and precious moments in life when everything falls away and there's nothing left but peace and silence within, that's when you're touching into the spirit within you. And it's not your spirit, it's spirit. And that means spirit inside me, spirit inside you, spirit inside each and every one in the world would be the same and universal. Whenever we slow down, settle down, and tune into stillness, we find the same thing waiting for us. If there's chaos and distraction and pain, well, that's the wounded self. If there's a busy mind and a list of things to do, well, that's the socialized self. If there's a sense of inspiration, creativity, intuition, that's the soul self. So while you're exploring this newfound time, what I'm encouraging you to do is practice mindfulness. And by mindfulness in this case, what I mean is observe yourself. Hour after hour, day after day. Where are your reactions coming from? What does the chatter in your head sound like? Does it sound like wounded thinking? Does it sound like conditioned thinking? Does it sound like quiet, clear, intuitive connection? You don't really need to do anything with these things today. I'm just asking you to practice being aware of them. The more you can be aware of these 4 different channels or ways to tune your attention, the more skillful you can be in each moment of your life. They all play a role, and they're ultimately all important. We're not trying to overcome woundedness or pretend it doesn't exist, and we're certainly not trying to deny the uniqueness of our soul. We're trying to find the right balance in a spirit-centered life that skillfully, compassionately, and intentionally navigates the soul, the the wounded self and the socialized self, so that we can have the greatest experience of each moment. And by that, I mean one that is fully engaged, our senses are alive and online, and that our decisions are coming from deep within and not from a place of reaction or fear. So, we're almost there. Before we close, the other thing I wanted to talk about today is forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is a huge topic that I'm going to cover in about a minute or two. But what we want to consider now is how forgiveness plays out in these four aspects of self. Why is forgiveness important? Well, it's important right now because some of you might be trapped, so to speak, with just a few people, a spouse, some children, maybe roommates. And it's very easy in times where your socialized self is demanding and your wounded self is triggered to become reactive and triggering each other. It can be easy for this to turn into a time of conflict with those you love. And I'm going to encourage you to take a breath and wait. If you're hearing judgment, criticism, control, that is definitely your socialized self, and you need to take a breath and just experience the feeling, but don't act from it, don't speak from it, don't feed it. If you're experiencing hurt and feelings of pain because of someone else, same thing. Honor it, feel it, but before you respond from there, take some time. Write about it, go sit, go for a walk. And when it comes out, you need to own it. When this goes on, I'm feeling this. It's not because of you. It's not you're this or you're that. It's just owning and feeling and expressing with ownership what you feel. But as we move deeper into the soul, we realize that forgiveness is not for other people. It's for ourselves. You've heard this before. It's about our own peace of mind and reclaiming and claiming our own energy. So if you find that you're feeling hostile, friction, impatience with other people, take your time, take your breath, return to a soul-centered experience and ask yourself, which of these wild and accusing thoughts are really helpful right now? Which serve us in this difficult time? Which are going to help us to feel more connected? It's not about being right or wrong anymore. It's about being clear, authentic, connected. And tuning into your soul self will help that. You realize that forgiveness has to be automatic. You don't wait for the person to say the right thing or do the right thing. That is the conditioned self, playing games with you, playing with your own comfort and emotion. So move down intentionally into that place that is connected to your intentions and your intuition. But the last place, and the place we're going to finish off today, is the spirit self. When you're in that spirit self, and I hope that if you're in quarantine or self-quarantine, that you are taking time at least twice a day to be in deep connection and communication with spirit, however you understand it. Talk to God, the angels, the spirits, the ancestors, life, the universe, the evolutionary existence that we are part of. I don't care what you call it, but whatever is the ultimate ground of being in your world, connect with that at least twice a day. Slow down, be still, and listen spaciously. When you access the still point in yourself, what you realize is that forgiveness is just a game of duality. It's something that the innermost self, the spirit, has no need for. There's no need to forgive people for making bad decisions because people make bad decisions. There's no need to forgive people for being hurtful because people are hurtful. There's no need for forgiveness when you are oriented in the center of your being, which aligns with the loving acceptance of all things as they are. Now, this doesn't mean we tolerate. This doesn't mean we promote or condone things that are harmful or against our soul, our dignity, or the well-being of the world. But it means that we engage those things from a place of intuitive clarity and compassion, not from a place of woundedness or rules or me versus you, game playing with power and righteousness. Connect with the Spirit Center, the place that needs not forgive, the place that feels the purpose and the place for all things, and understands that we're all hurting at some level. We're all doing our best, believe it or not, at some level. And from there we can move into the soul and ask what feels like the most fruitful or useful thing to say and do in this moment where I'm feeling hurt, in this moment where I previously would have thought forgiveness was an issue, and instead ask what will bring us to a higher consciousness. Half the time the answer is going to be do nothing. Go for a walk, connect with life, and remember everyone's place and the 4 layers of self in each situation. From there, we can skillfully work with the wounds of the past that need us to feel them, to heal them. We can work with the conditioning of the past, the rules we've been given about how things should work, and instead come to a place of mindful, peaceful choosing so that the energy of life can flow to us and through us. So that's it. We're over 12 minutes already, but I'm grateful to do this again. You are welcome to respond to this video, whether you watched it live or you're watching it recorded later, with questions. I will check the questions later and either answer online through Facebook, or I will feed them into tomorrow's talk. Now, tomorrow, if you're watching this live, is Sunday. It's Sunday, March 22nd, and I will be on the Althea Center Denver Facebook page at 10:30 in the morning Mountain Time, and we will be doing a live spiritual gathering. We had about 120 people attend last time, and thousands watched it. So it's 10:30. It's Althea Center Denver. We're going to be live. You don't need to do anything but show up to the webpage. Donations are included and welcome. Share the event with people. It was very exciting to be online with so many people, and it will be meditation and prayer and a message and a little Q&A at the end. Thank you for your time. Lots of love and blessings to each and every one of you, and stay mindful of the 4 faces of self, the 4 facets of self, and see what you can learn today. Bye-bye.